Hello and welcome, dear traders. We want to show here some interesting trading ideas and setups in our daily international webinar. We call it Real-Time Daily Trading Ideas. 5 days, 5 traders. But first of all, our risk disclaimer. Be aware that Forex and CFDs are leveraged products and can result in losses that exceed your deposits. They may not be subtitled for everyone, so please be aware of that all we are showing here is just a personal opinion of the professional traders and not an advice for investing. Yeah, if I said to the beginning, 5 days, 5 traders. Today is Friday. Today is with Dirk. Maybe you heard in before in our Punkt 10 webinar. We call it in Germany. So yeah, later more about Dirk. Yeah, some good news. Christmas is coming early with Admiral Markets. We have a special promotion on our website, so you can get free trading, so without spread. So more information on our website. Here you can see some special offer. Maybe, for example, here our bestseller DAX 30 with a typical fixed spread of only 0.8 points during the main trading hours. If you have some question of our products or our services, feel free to contact us. Here you can see our telephone number, our email, and yeah, you can also check out our YouTube channel. All these webinars are recorded, so you can see it later on our YouTube channel. So here you can see some picture from Dirk. Dirk, I hope you can hear me, the sound as well, and yeah, you have the screen.
Yeah, thank you very much. The voice is here. The sound is quite perfect, I guess. And let's have a look at the markets today. As we already started this morning with the German version, as you already said, the so-called Punkt 10 in Germany, so it would be translatable directly in 0.10 a.m. So this is the reason they're calling it that way. And we are looking at the German DAX and looking at the lows at 12,903 right now. And in the morning we had a little slide down to the 12,859. Why we slided down there, we will have a look at that later on. First of all, we will have a look at the Fibonacci's and the chart technical aspects I showed you last week on Friday as well. And you'll be seeing that kind of candles, a lot of candles, if I may just shape them or in rectangles into the blue screen, like something like a trading box. And I told you about something like this 61.8% Fibonacci and 50% Fibonacci will be having an effect on the German DAX. So in the end, it happened that way. I'm not talking about that I had a glass ball and I'm like Merlin and the magician. The only thing that we did is just technical aspects, and on top of that, we just combined the Fibonacci's and pivots and the actual fundamentals with that kind of research. So what happened in Germany right now, there's still no coalition. It doesn't look very bright if you look at what is going on in Berlin and with the president and arranging a new coalition between the blacks and the reds. And however, you may see the DAX is really not amused, as you will see with the 3 daily candles to the downside and a retest of that lower band here. If you look at this, for example, let's shape that as well with the blue box to the downside here. If you see that these 1, 2, 3 candles to the downside tests around the 12,840s, 850s. And this should be some new startup to so-called restart to the long side. So possibly this is something like we will see at the first trading day of the month. It's the 1st of December today, so we might see some relief rally to the upside, which is not a 100% to new highs or to new record highs. Nothing told you about that. Just having a look at the international flows, and this is important for the DAX as well. As you may already see, you got the Dow Jones, for example, at the level of 24K above that. and it shared up about 700, 715, 720 points this week. And the DAX didn't do things like that in about 300 pips, 300 points, excuse me, 300 points to the downside. So they are completely other ways. Why? Let's have a look at the international flows, for example, in the last 2 weeks. And you got some information about, for example, that the European markets as well as the German market has a so-called minus flow. So a lot of money went out of equities and went into the US, for example. And having a look at the next days to come, there's still this kind of surprise, hopefully positive surprise because of those US tax reforms. 100% is not true. If you think about this, will be a 100%, let's say commitment that the markets will only go up and more and more. The Dow Jones, for example, is giving you a hint at fundamentals from the tax reforms maybe, but on top of that, if you have a look at the technicals, there are not too many projections to the upside. So we will have a look at the Dow Jones as well in comparison to the German DAX, and have a look at the monthly chart first. You got not too much possibilities looking at, for example, projections in the long run. If you just slide that up and have a look at the 261.8 projection, you got one level at 26,500 approximately. So this is one possible target to the upside, still one possible target. We delete that one and go back to the 4-hour chart. Let's just have a look at that one. And if you just check the last high here from the 7th of November, you got the high at 23K623 to the downside, where the zero line is from the Fibonacci retracements. You got the 23,242. So those two levels combined gives you a hint for the next projections. 138.2, 161.8, and 261.8 projections, for example. That's why I made a short setup right here at the 24,245 yesterday. I gave it 100 points room, so the stop loss level is at 24,345. Let's see if that works. Right now, it still looks like that. And where we'd be having the targets to this 161.8 to the downside, if that is possible. If it is too much, and if you guess that that one is too much, you just give it a little bit less room and just take the 50% move of this candle and have a first target, for example, just to measure that. I just use it to measure it a little bit. And the next version, next target to the next fib line, and that's about it. Just to measure those two and to give you a hint where the next targets to the downside might be in direction to 24,140, for example, or a retest of those psychological level of 24K. So that might be something where you're heading to the downside. As well, you have to remind yourself always try to move the stop loss to the entry. If you have something like 20 to 50 points to the downside, if you have already a little bit more room in your setup, then maybe have use the possibility to just move the stop loss to the downside. As well as said, for example, if you don't use stuff like the navigator here, oops, not that one. I wanted to show you the navigator. 1 second. So, for example, if you are not seeing something like those tools here, for example, a mini terminal tool or stuff like that, you might be calling the admiralmarkets.com desk and may ask them how to implement that into your platform. If you already downloaded that one, then you will see something like a window like this popping up. Simply OK. And you'll be seeing something like the mini terminal showing up and the order letters giving you possibilities to enter and to use pending orders, for example, with a new way. If you look at the mini terminal, for example, just choose your lot size, for example, half a lot or a full lot, and just try to have an effect, for example, like the stop loss level of 50 points, and as well you have the possibility to use this to take profits or trailing stops like that. Things you can already do is, for example, if you have an interest into short of the Dow Jones, you might be using the order ladder, for example, having a pending order for 24,302, for example, and you might be having a target at the lines I already showed you, for example, to the 24,140, for example. You might be using that one. And of course, don't forget to place the stop loss above. That might be the case if you use the stop loss, for example, with 50 euros or with 100 euros. It depends on how much risk you're up to and how much risk fits to your account size. I just do that with a setup right now with approximately 50 euros. So everything is set up right now, and it is 100% into your terminal, into your usual platform. If you just have a look at the terminal, for example, you see your order is placed that way. You got a size of one lot, the symbol Dow Jones, the price is 24,302.20, stop loss already set like this we did in the order ladder, and the take profit as well, and the price. So everything is set like that. Okay, that's one thing I wanted to show you. The other ways is silver. This is silver long. I placed the silver long. I have to admit it was a crappy entry. I entered the silver long at 1680s, late 80s, and right now I'm slightly underwater. And the stop loss level, my stop loss level is 1623. So a little bit more room to go, but still looks ugly. Possibly I'm gonna be stopped out, but well, it's a setup. The setup is set, and already a stop loss room of 100 euros is quite okay, I guess. And if I lose 100 euros in that way, it should be fine. Regarding the fact that you always have to pay attention to your account size, and that you don't overdo, and that you don't always remind yourself about having, for example, an 0.5% risk with every position you maybe get into. Okay, so next version, we got the euro versus the Australian dollar. So it might be interesting. This morning we talked about a short setup. This short setup is still working. The short setup was from the 157.20 is down to the downside. If you have a look at the market overview and the market watch, you see that the euro Australian dollar made a high at 157.69.5 and went down and was testing the downside right now, and is already testing the downside, still testing. And where could this kind of move go? We already took these Fibonacci tools from the long-term view and from the short-term view, and made a few projections to the downside as well. There are possibly positive reactions at the 138.2 projection, which would be 155.50s. So this would be a nice target to the downside. And the next target from the long-term Fibonacci is the 61.8 level. We will mark that one as well with a horizontal line, and we'll be having those around the 154.50s. These are the possible short targets. If you talk about short targets, of course, we always have to, we need to have a look at to the upside as well. Just have a look at the weekly, for example. And if you have a look at the long-term chart, you see where the euro versus the Australian dollar might be heading to as well. So you see the short-term Fibonacci projections to 161.8 is close to the same level of the old high. An old high from those 23rd of August is the week of 23rd of August. Is a special day. I have to admit that this kind of candle is a really special one, because it's the week of 23rd of August. If you just look back in history, what happened at the 24th of August, this was a crash, a day of a market crash. And if you have a look at the euro, for example, and if you have a look at the Dow Jones and other stock markets at that 24th of August, you will see that they almost took a downside. Sorry to say that, but they really went far down the road. Okay, this is the reason we have this kind of spike here, and this is quite rare, I guess. I guess this kind of move won't happen the next days to come. So that might be an interesting level at the 162.48.9. This is the another high from this history, from the weekly history. It would be a target to the upside for the so-called Euro Australian dollar bulls. If you check pairs like that, always remind yourself that you need to be checking the euro versus the US dollar and the Australian dollar versus the US dollar, because they are having an effect, of course, and they are melting into the euro Australian dollar cross. So that is very important to say. Always think about these kind of correlations and movements from the market. Okay. The next setup is something like a Brent. We will have a look at the daily chart here. We'll be inserting that one as well. The navigator doing the same stuff like we did with the Dow Jones and the other ones. So, for example, why is it not working? Wait a second. Hold on a second. Oh, okay, there you go. So, if you have a look, for example, at the current Brent crude price, you might be interested in what was happening yesterday. Of course, think about there was the OPEC meeting in Vienna, and OPEC members and non-OPEC members agreed to still widen and still leave this kind of production reduction measures into place, and they will be having effect into the year 2018 as well. So this is nothing like having a 100% control of the worldwide crude market, the oil market, but it's possibly having an effect to balance out the ask and the bid side, and this might be having an effect for a little bit more relief to the upside as well. So we might be retesting the old levels. We might be retesting this what is it, the 64.92 level. So that might be a nice target to the upside, where you might be taking your profits, for example. And if you just have the projection levels to the upside as well, I just use that black horizontal line here to move that to the 138.2 level as well, like we use this black here, this black horizontal line for the 161.8 level, just to check the projections and to check where the oil price might be heading to the north as well. So only to have some possible targets. If you do research with Fibonacci retracements to the downside as well, we might be looking at projections to the downside and levels in possibly weeks to come, where we see 57 and 40 and 54, 59 here at the screen. This is not something like what could happen in the next days or in the next week, but something like that could happen easily into the next month, for example. Okay. Then there is another thing about the strategies and the US dollar, for example, looking at the Euro US dollar. The last setup I showed you was a so-called short setup into this trading boxes. We marked the 50% and the 61.8%. The level was 118.25, 118.80, where we told you, or something like had an analysis where it could be possible to have a new short setup. So I'm still convinced that we might see a bit more direction to the upside to retest at 119.60 level here. Let's mark that with the horizontal as well. This is the 11960 level. Let's make that one directly to the 11960 just to mark it correctly. Okay, and this is something where between those highs from today, for example the 11939ers and the 11960s, something like having a new trading box for a short setup. There is a lot of room, a lot of talk about the current U.S. tax reform. Yeah, you might be aware that the U.S. Senate is talking about and is having a debate about the tax bill. So Trump's tax bill will be possibly getting through, but there's still room that a couple of senators or 2 or 3 senators might say, no, I'm not going to vote for that. And the whole house, the whole thing is falling apart. So that might be having an effect on the euro-US dollar. That might be having an effect on the indices like the US stock markets, and especially the pumped up Dow Jones, SPX, and Nasdaq 100, for example. So what could happen in the future and what could happen during they have a debate, because you have to watch the fundamentals as well. This is extremely important. They try to figure out and try to to moderate that, and they try to, for example, to move so-called 3% US GDP growth projections, which are maybe lining or guidelining this kind of tax reform into the future. So if, for example, the US economy is not in the mood to have 3% US GDP growth and way less than that, for example, 2.5 or 2.7, they might be moving the tax cuts into the future, or maybe they're reducing the tax cuts. So there is a lot of room for rumors. There's a lot of room for disappointment. And I have to admit, there's a lot of possibility that the market might be correcting. Might be. I'm not talking about it will, but it might be correcting in a couple of days to come, because the debate is not over, and because this tax bill is not yet 100% clear. Okay, and that's from that kind of fundamentals. If you look at the technicals, we will remove that, delete that, and delete the rest of it, and having a so-called naked chart, and have a look at the next moves to come. For example, when we look at the 4 hour is from the last high to the current low, and so we already see that what I'm talking about. We see that 61.8 level again and again and again, and this is in the test, the 61.8. And this is an interesting support right now. If this stays, we will be heading up the road to 11960 again. And the big target, if you look at the daily, is the high of the 8th of September. So check that one. That's still the high to go. It's the 120.92 level. Okay, back to the 4 hour. And looking at the next trade setups to come. So we might be having a short setup right now and trying to get the market to something like a breakout scenario to the downside, which could be the 119 level is key down to the 118.80s and down the road to the 118.50s. So there is not much room, like 30 or 40 pips to go. To the upside, there's room for the 119.60, and when you look at the projections up the way, if you look at the 138.2 level, you might be having this 120.20 level. Dailies, let's just check the indicators. For example, the relative strength index as well. No clear sign. 61, 69. This is nothing like overbought or oversold. Nothing like that. Absolutely neutral. Same stuff on weekly and monthly, and having a look at the 4 hour, there's no sign from that indicator as well. So deleting that one. If you have a 69 to 75 for our RSI, for example, you might be interested in having a new short setup. If you have a 20-25 points RSI, you might be having an idea to go to the long side, just from the explaining how to use the RSI. Not everybody is the pro. Not everybody is using every kind of indicator, so that is the RSI. It's a completely easy indicator. Something like 20 to 25 is giving you a sign for a long side. Something like 70 to the 80s is giving you maybe a hint to the short side. Okay. So any questions, any special markets? I already see that it's 11:27 already. I have to admit I need to check the chat box and the questions.
So yeah, Dirk, first of all, thanks a lot for your showing us some interesting trading setups and screening the market. So I don't know, if you like, we can show some last markets here. For example, the yen is here asking for, I think, for the US dollar, and so maybe the last one here. Yeah, there's a market, and maybe the last market here for today.
Okay. So have a look. Let's have a look at the US dollar versus the yen. The days before, as you already see the move to the downside, you have to think about what is going on in the worldwide FX markets, and the Japanese yen is a currency where you can take up a lot, load up a lot of debt. It's very easy to get money with an interest rate below zero right now. It's minus 0.10%, and it's one of the cheapest currencies of the world. And it's not only a thing from 1 year; it's way back years and years and years. And something like a international flow, international forex market move will be having an effect on the yen as well. So if you have a look at stock markets, if you have a look at the overbought scenarios in the US indices, for example, you might be having a look as well at the highs and the lows of the stock markets in the US. And you have a look at possibly at the so-called big correction days. And then you have a look parallel to that one, have a look at the US dollar versus the yen, and you will see when markets are selling off, having pressure, selling pressure, and a lot of selling pressure means that, for example, the US market is reversing 2% or 3% to the downside, which it did not long ago. For example, at the movement from the 29th of August, when the markets went down a little bit. So you see the same stuff. You see the same stuff already in US dollar versus yen, for example. So the more US markets, for example, are selling to the downside or having selling pressure, the more effect it will be having on the Japanese yen, and that one is getting stronger. So that means that US dollar versus the yen is getting to the downside. So right now we have a so-called reverse. This is reversing the last sell-off to let's have a look at the current Fibonacci. Delete that one, and we will be deleting the others here as well. 1 second, please. And just to have that one in the last minutes to come here, and we'll be having this latest high from this version to the latest low, and then we will having the 50% correction of this move at a level of 112.80. So this is something, for example, between the 112.80 and the 61.8% level. Again, something like a so-called trading box. I mark that one with the blue color here. It would be something like a move into that trading box for a next short setup, for example. Yeah. This means when the market is selling off, there are billions of dollars going back to Japan in that way, because the so-called financing currency, they will be having a pressure on the financing currency of a lot of trades. Those trades go back to Japan. That means repatriation is having an effect on a stronger yen. That's the only reason, just of the idea behind that. If markets are going slightly slightly up, we only will have a small amount to the upside, and this could be having an effect, really getting us into that kind of short window here in this so-called short setup. So that's the idea behind it. As I said before, I don't have any glass balls here as well, and water at my home, at my place, is boiling at 100 degrees Celsius as well. So don't be shocked, or don't be fooled by any stuff like that outside. You're using the same techniques, you're using the same water, and you're using the same market like everyone does. You have the same chances. And if you have a look at this, for example, this market here is quite one of the biggest markets in the world. Directly after euro US dollar, it's US dollar versus the yen. So there's endless liquidity, and there's really no one 100% sure, no one moving you out of a trade, because we are talking about billions and billions of US dollars. Nobody can move that. Okay. That's Friday, 11:32. A little bit overdone from the minutes, I see, but in the end, we had some nice setups, maybe some nice informations. And if you have any questions, maybe you are interested to contact me via Twitter, or however you may like to contact me, or via Admiral Markets. From my point of view, I just have to send you a very, very nice weekend with a lot of sun, hopefully. And we'll be seeing you at the next Friday, same time, 11 CTV. Bye.
Okay, thanks, Dirk, for your showing us some interesting setups here, and for the market setups here. So yeah, feel free to contact us if you have any additional question. So you can show our contact details on our website. So, and again, thanks a lot for you, all the listeners here, and yeah, we wish you a very good start into the weekend. Stay fine and take care. Bye bye.
Bye.